What's going on, guys? The Comics Kid 2099 here. Today I want to talk to you about Shatterstar, Reality Star. This is a 5-issue miniseries written by Tim Seeley with art by Carlos Vila, Gerardo Sandoval, Juan Velasco, and Carlos Lopez. This is a solo Shatterstar story that takes pretty much all of his backstory that I was aware of and does a pretty cool little character piece on Shatterstar. This is a character that probably not many people care about or are interested in, but if you are a decent-sized X-Men fan, maybe you don't read everything with an X on it, but you like the X-Men and you're familiar with Shatterstar, but you don't really care about the character, I would suggest picking this up. This takes a lot of stuff that was revealed about him in the 1990s X-Force series and the Peter David X-Factor run from the 2000s, and it does a cool little character piece on Shatterstar using all of that backstory. It is pretty new reader friendly. I'm going to say probably nobody is going to walk into a comic book shop. I haven't read any X-Men stuff before. Here's issue 1 featuring a character called Shatterstar. I'll give it a try. I'm going to assume people aren't going to do that. But like I said, if you like reading X-Men and you are aware of Shatterstar, but you haven't read a lot of stuff with him, and you thought, okay, this is by the guy who wrote the Grayson series, where Dick Grayson is a secret agent. Maybe I'll like this. And then you give it a shot. What I like about it is that it does kind of get into some of his backstory, but it holds your hand just enough where it's not overwhelming. This does bring back briefly a character who was introduced in the mid-90s by Fabian Nicieza. It was Shatterstar's wife, or almost wife. She shows up here. There's also the Grand Master, who you probably saw in Thor Ragnarok. He is here. And I will go ahead and say the only time I ever came close to caring about the Grand Master was in Thor Ragnarok, and that was because of Jeff Goldblum really bringing in a fun, entertaining performance with a lot of pretty fun, witty dialogue. But the character in the comics, I have never cared about him because I don't really know what the stakes are. He's so powerful, I don't know who can beat them, and honestly it feels kind of not believable when someone does beat them. And this does it in a way, I like the way that he's handled here. But I don't know, is he going to come back? I'm not really sure, but this is a character, he showed up in the 1990 Silver Surfer series. I've read a few scattered issues from that series, and then he's an Avengers villain who shows up from time to time. I've never really cared about the Grand Master, but he is a good villain for Shatterstar. He's kind of similar to Mojo, who is kind of connected to Shatterstar in Longshot. Mojo is the head of his own little world where entertainment is the currency of the land, and Mojo rules through entertainment. And so he does various TV shows, and if the ratings are down, then his rule over the people is in danger of being over. And so the Grand Master is kind of being played like that here, and I don't know how much that lines in with his personality and some of his other appearances in other comics outside of this, because it almost feels like they could have just done a Mojo thing. I'm glad that they didn't, because Mojo's a character I don't really like. I find him to be very irritating, so this only briefly mentions Mojo. I don't think he even shows up. Maybe he shows up in some flashbacks. I don't remember if he shows up. If he does, it wasn't for a very big amount of time. But the Grandmaster, character I haven't really cared about before, but the way that this comic uses him, it works very well with Shatterstar's backstory. I would say the thing that I liked most about this is Shatterstar as a landlord for an apartment complex. I thought that was interesting. This really digs into Shatterstar's past as a gladiatorial fighter, and he's trying to give that up and trying to actually build a new life for himself on Earth, because once he came to Earth, he was pretty much just a member of various X-Men teams, X-Force and then later X-Factor, and then he had a solo adventure back in the mid-2000s, but for the most part, he's just been part of a larger team. And what I liked about this is it's trying to give him something to do outside of the X-Men books. And the fun thing about him being a landlord, it's not just a normal apartment complex. All the people who live there, they are I guess travelers from other realities. They're either stuck in this dimension or they chose to live in this dimension. And so there's a lot of fun there with some of the characters. They don't get much to do other than be rescued by Shatterstar, but they are still a lot of fun to see because it could have been just a whole lot of normal people with no personality at all. And this book wisely gives these characters, who are basically just damsels in distress, personality, and it makes them fun and entertaining to watch when we're not watching Shatterstar save them. But I really liked him being the landlord of his own own apartment complex. I'm afraid that the next time Shatterstar shows up in an X-Men book, and for all I know, he's already shown up in the House of X, Powers of X relaunch of the X-Men books, but I'm afraid that the next time he shows up, it's going to discard everything from this miniseries. And I don't like that, because I actually like the idea of him being a landlord and trying to build a life for himself outside of being a gladiator. I think that was an interesting idea here, probably the best thing about the book. So, like I said, if you're not into the X-Men, you're probably not going to care about this character, but if you do like the X-Men and you've just never found yourself very interested in the character, I would give this a shot. I like it quite a bit. I think that it does a very good job of building a character out of someone who wasn't much of a character before this. Even in Peter David's X-Factor run, a lot of people really like Peter David as a writer. I think sometimes he really hits it over the park, you know what I mean. Sometimes he's really good, and then sometimes it leaves a lot to be desired. And I think his use of Shatterstar, he didn't really do a whole lot with the character in what I have read of the latter half of his X-Factor run. So this is one of my favorite Shatterstar stories. So that's about all that I have to say here. I hope that you guys liked this review, and if you did, be sure to come back in the future, and I'll be doing some more videos soon. In the meantime, have a great rest of the day. Catch you later.